Welcome back to Caffeine Confessionals. My name is Allan, and today we're here to talk about the Challenge 40 Battle of the Eras, Episode 4. I'm joined by my lovely co-host. We have the Southern Luke Muncie,
What's up, guys?
the Vermontian Zoe Trimboli.
Hi, everyone.
We were so excited for this episode coming in from last week, and I will say my excitement and expectations have been basically met, and even crazier is that the hype for next week's even bigger. We got more controversy. We got trivia daily challenges. It's just wire to wire. I've been entertained by these episodes.
I have a real bummer. There is no episode next week.
What?
The VMAs. So I think there's going to be a 2-week hiatus where they return on the Survivor premiere night. I made this realization yesterday. Yeah.
I hate
Just
this.
when you get momentum, it's like, let's stop it and put it with Survivor. And I understand the VMAs are going to bring in a larger crowd, of course. Show the episode on Tuesday. Show it on Thursday. Like, what other program do you have? Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, I think is what they have on right now, or maybe Chanel West Coast Show.
I don't know why they haven't switched so they're not competing with Survivor, honestly.
There is no good argument for why it airs the same answer. There's just no good argument as to why, and they keep doing it. And it's almost like they wait for Survivor to start these challenge seasons as well. That's such a bummer. And it's such a bummer too because I'm so excited to podcast talk about this episode, and we are going to be excited to talk about it. But like, man,
sorry.
Yeah, that's going to be like a bummer. I wonder if any of the cast is going to be at the VMAs.
That is
iconic like fights in the past.
Yes. I don't know that they will be. I mean, because if you had to guess one person, one woman who would be there, who would you think?
Cara Maria.
Okay, so she's going to like a watch party, and then that's how I found out. She posted the watch party's still happening, but there will be no challenge episode because of the VMAs. So like, I feel like they won't be there, which is again a dumb thing to do. Like, promote them.
Wow. That's a bummer. Let's move on to the episode because it was good. I'm just it pisses me off. But like, let's stay positive. Let's stay on the good and narrow. And we come back from elimination from last week. People are like reacting to like this new targeting twist. You see Laurel talking with John A, where she's confused as to why Darrell's nominated her. Just different heart. Everyone's taking like the new twist differently.
Yeah. I mean, the options are limited. I did like, and if you want to weaken somebody else's team, he's not going to put Cara Maria in. So Laurel seems to make sense to me.
Yeah, I think that it's easy for her to draw this like false equivalence of Darrell has admitted that he wished he'd picked Laurel for fresh meat instead of Cara Maria. I think he's said that, and I've seen him say that in interviews. But that doesn't mean that he's closer to you than Cara Maria. He's just saying that was a better like competitive move. She's just weird.
She did have a very like, how could it possibly be me reaction when it is like Luke said, like there's only 4 people you could target, and him and Cara go way back. Him and Aviv were partners, and then it's just her and Emily, which is just that feels like a coin flip. We'll get more into that in a bit later, but it was too much shock for what is a 1 in 4 pick.
Well, and it could be as simple as like Brad's his boy, and he's enjoying watching Brad like have fun and get to know Emily, and like he's not gonna cut that off at that moment, because if there are any relationships that matter to him, I think it's with like Derek and Brad, really the most.
Yeah,
definitely. We also then move on and we see Anissa, who's just perpetually upset that the target is on her, and we've gone into great detail about that. Like, if you listen to this podcast, we don't hold back when it comes to Anissa. At the same time, I do have to give Anissa credit because she's talking about the injury she sustained on Ride or Dies, where it's like an MCL tear, an Achilles tear, like in her 40s to come back, and actually compete on the show after those injuries it is impressive in you know, in a way, just to put yourself out there like that. And I think Jenny, of all people, was actually super awesome and super nice, where she's like being incredibly body positive towards Anissa, which a lot of people on the internet aren't. Um, our complaint is that Anissa doesn't have the cardio to run a final. We've never said anything about her body because you know what? Different body types, whole different thing. But kudos to Jenny for just being so nice and kind, and our complaints are still valid.
Matter of fact, we have specifically said being thin does not equate to being strong.
Or fit.
Right. Which is something that Jenny does say, which is great. Does it apply to Anissa? I don't know. I'm so glad she's back after her knee injury. I hope she wins the season. I don't like her, and it's not because she can't win, because she can't. I don't like her because she feels entitled to win when she can't.
When she hasn't put in the work to win. Yeah, it comes down to fitness for me. I mean, I also just don't like her on a personal level, but like whatever. Um I think a big reason she sustained that injury was because of how out of shape she was. Like, if we're being really real, that's a big part of it. So kudos to her for going to PT. Like, this is her job. The challenge is literally her job. So okay, good. You I think she's brave for coming on the show, knowing the way that people talk about women on the internet, especially with women that look like Anissa. I do. I think that that is a brave choice, and I don't want to contribute to any body shaming associated with her because I don't think that is what we want to be circulating on the internet about anyone. It it comes down to her fitness, and it's not there.
And it almost seemed, I don't want to take away from Jenny being kind. So I think Jenny's just a happy, nice person. But it almost seemed like she's like, you're beautiful, but let me help you while you're here. Like, I can prepare this for you. You can make the shakes. I can get you working out. Because I guess they're friends. Slim Pickens, maybe.
I just think Jenny's I think she's a neat person. I think she's just a kind person who's just accepting of all like these different things where like obviously like Jenny puts in like 300% work into her body and her fitness to a level that I like sometimes I just see her on camera and I go, what the hell? Because she's so in shape. But she's not someone who's saying you need to be exactly like me. I just want to be like me. And that's what I really like about Jenny compared to someone else on this cast who's also in the fitness sphere.
Well, she also said, like, I only look like this because this is my job. And I appreciated that. Like, she's a
Yeah.
personal trainer. She has that online program, which I would assume is successful. So I like that she threw that in there because the average person does not look like anybody on the challenge.
Yeah.
They just don't.
I think I would love Jenny to be my personal trainer, just in terms of how she was with Anissa and how kind she is, and clearly how dedicated she is. And I think that it's really cool when a woman that looks like her praises other body types, period. Because you can be, we all look, we all have different bodies, we all look different ways, and that's what makes the world a better place, frankly. So I think it's really cool when women like that say things like that.
As we also found out, this scene was a bit of foreshadowing. We move into the daily challenge, and it's trivia. They're competing in teams. There is a bunch of different categories, and it's all challenge trivia, which I think is fun for its 40th season. And it's great because it's not multiple choice like the recent seasons, and there's points based on difficulty. So some of the questions maybe weren't the most difficult for more points, but that's a whole different conversation. But you know what? There's an actual format, and if you get one wrong, or if you representing your team gets one wrong, two people on your team will get dropped from up high into some water, maybe a little half-assedly. But yeah, it was. I thought it was one of the best trivia challenges we've had in a long time because they have not been good in recent years.
I think it was Zoe last week that had said, like, it seemed like they were trying to get as many shots as possible of the cast doing every single thing they could. I was like, okay, well, naturally, let's try to get as many like humorous things and falls because we've got 30 of them here still. But no, I'm a big fan of trivia. TJ's laugh wasn't as excruciating today because that's been a big complaint from us the past few seasons. It's like, okay, we get that you think it's funny, but like this seems so forced. It wasn't too bad.
No, it felt more genuine this time. And I think it makes sense on the 40th season when you're doing all this to have it be challenge trivia. Although I really did miss a little bit of the basic life questions that people should know because I really like it when they highlight how dumb these people are sometimes.
Yeah.
Like those are the questions that stand out in my memory. I'm not going to remember that so and so one of the castmates didn't remember somebody's name or who somebody's partner was. I want to know that like they don't know the official language in Australia.
Right.
I was going crazy with some of these cast members not knowing some really basic challenge trivia though. I so for example, they asked Josh who did CT murder on the duel 2? Which I think that has to be top 3 challenge fights all time, top 1. Like CT almost murdered Adam. Like for a lot of people, like that is like a signature challenge moment, and Josh had no clue of it.
Yeah. The one that stood out most to me, and I'll give Anissa credit here, was the one about the Rock of Gibraltar. It was like worded like what something something. I'm like, what?
I got that one. Just saying.
See, I did just because they said what started vendettas, but like, I don't know. I didn't realize Gibraltar was a pillar of Hercules. I don't even know what the fuck that was. Excuse my language, but
So I got that wrong because I've been rewatching Old Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and they asked where Gibraltar was, and it was between Spain and England. And because like the season was in Spain, but Gibraltar's technically in England or whatever, and I got it wrong. I was real sad. But yeah, I was like challenge trivia to real life. Do you want to talk about how the teams did?
Yeah,
Okay,
bring it down.
so do you guys want to go from worst to best or just era through era?
let's do worst to best. I think we could discuss who's actually best.
So era 4, these are not real challenge fans. These are just straight up like none of these people have actually watched the show. They got cast from their previous like other organizations. They're not real world fans because they were fucking clueless throughout this entire trivia thing. And Kylan, who said he studied the game and was real confident, I'll tell you this: Kylan doesn't rewatch the seasons. He goes through Chat GBT and like gets the information he needs to. They were clueless.
Kylan said before he went on USA, he started watching from Final Reckoning onto I think at that point Spies, Lies, and Allies was out. That's not studying the show, and that he would go on their wikis and see what the winners did, and like this really would have been a time when Polly and Nerese would have been key assets to this team because they really are challenge fans, like through and through. Yeah. And also, if you're Colin and you do feel confident about that, you don't vocalize it perhaps because if you shit the bed, it's pretty obvious.
I mean, I think we did learn about Kylan when we interviewed him is that he has virtually no filter. So like anything that comes through his mind, he says. Um, so he's not holding back anything he thinks are his strengths and weaknesses on this show. Like the cast knows everything he thinks because he just doesn't stop talking. Bless his heart.
What was insane to me was he picked like as his first question like geography for 400 before they had seen any geography question and like what like I would at least be like geography for 100 so I could see the difficulty of what these geography questions are before I asked like and they asked some question like what river from what season of like this little thing happened and like I don't even have a clue about that and I'm supposed to like know about this for a living.
I right away was like, geography is going to be the hardest because they've been everywhere. Like
Mhm.
they've been all over the place. I can never remember where certain seasons were. I have like little memories of TJ saying beautiful Columbia or like all these other things, but I have no idea where these seasons took place.
Air Force was a mess. They came in last place, and so Horacio and Jenny automatically an elimination, which is automatically just off the bat going to be a good elimination with those two in there.
Yeah. I hated it for them just because like they clearly are the outs of their team. So like they said it several times, but like they only want Jenny there as a shield.
Yeah, it I think it also put the fear of God in every other team. the targets from every other team at that point, because that's not who I want to face in elimination.
The next worst era was Era 1, which did make sense a bit because even though some of these people were there from the beginning, you have players like Darrell, Derek, Brad, Rachel, and Tina, who basically missed the entirety of seasons like 18 to like 28. They were gone for a long time and they've come back in recent years, but there's a whole era of the challenge they just weren't there for. And when you have CT missing questions too, it's not going to be easy.
They're falling apart. We've said that each episode, but like progressively, it really is noticeable their age.
It's funny just because like they're not that old, but when you're next to these like 30-year-old influencers who work out for a living, the age shows.
Yeah.
Except for Rachel, who looks great and I still wouldn't want to go head to head with in a final.
I was dying at when they asked Tina what season did Darrell first win, and then they show the clip of them partying in the hot tub next to each other on Darrell's first win season. The editing of this season has been really fun of just showing the old challenge clips. Like, good for them using the archives that are there. Like, we always miss when they don't like show the history of the show and they actually are this season. It's great.
Yeah. I'm going to throw it back real quick to Era 4 because I just thought of this. When they asked Highland, like, what was the 500th episode? Like, I immediately knew that from having only watched that season one time. But my heart, whenever they showed Ashley, couldn't take it. Because when that season aired, they edited her out when they said the 500th episode. They, like, cut it so she wasn't in the frame. But she was in the frame this time.
I knew that because we podcast about that episode. I knew it because we were podcast. Like, that was the only reason I knew it. If not, I've never rewatched that episode, but yeah. There was also an interesting wrinkle in this daily competition where they were hung up, and the skinnier players were able to hang up much more safely, whereas I know I would have a tough time up there because I would have been like CT and Anissa, where it's like, oh my God, I'm about to literally fall on my ass right here. And as we saw, CT took one of the worst hits I've ever seen in water. They had to take him off on a stretcher, and Brad said it best, like, this guy's a Terminator. I've just never seen this happen to him.
Horrible. Shows his age and how his, what's the word I'm looking for? His in shapeness. That's not a word, but like physique? How that, his, maybe, but like I think that even sometimes his physique can be like bulkier and he's still like competitively there. Yeah. I think sometimes he just lets it all go. And which is fair. Like the man had just won the Traders like before this. So, you know, collect your check. But it was bad. And after that, everyone, literally everyone after that hung onto the bar and like let themselves fall feet first. Which, before this even started, to set in that cradle position, I thought they are begging for them to just spiral into this water. That's so unsafe.
Yeah, I think it's funny enough to watch them drop. We don't need to like risk them landing on their necks and their heads.
I just remember there was a season, I think X's 1, where they were flinging the people off. And it was Rachel and Anissa were a team, and Anissa actually got hurt. And they went to like a sudden death round. And because Anissa was hurt, they just had Rachel compete solo. And so some of these trivia challenges might be like more dangerous than the average daily challenge, especially when you're flinging players like this. I mean, I haven't seen CT get taken out till something like this.
Yeah.
Luckily, CT was okay, as we'll talk about later. And then it became down to Era 3 and Era 2, which is like the actual challenge fans right there. Those are the people who were fans before they got cast and were watching the show after. So these two were just really strong.
It's the era of the real worlders and like even Are You the One, right? Like it was people competing for challenge calls on their seasons. So
they knew what it was.
Yeah, they really wanted to be there. I was not surprised that it was these two teams battling it out.
Same. I I thought that at times too, they got questions that were perhaps a little easier or like more related to them, but they were pre-written, so I guess that's not possible. I just am always looking for like loopholes in my brain. But when you ask Devin, who famously got in a fight on Final Reckoning, what was his partner? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that could have went to anybody, I guess.
And it is kind of tailor made to them in the fact that most of the history runs through them.
Yeah.
I mean, I was surprised when Emily Scrum was like pulling questions because like I think of her as someone who's like, you don't watch the show, you work out and you live in your little van in your Denver gym and like stuff like that.
Yeah, she knew that random city like Bosia or something. I was like, wait, what?
Of the Duel 1, like a season that like predated her by like 5 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I did think it was unfair when TJ asked Jordan who was the first solo challenge champion. And he immediately said Wes, which I was like, yeah, because he won the Duel 1. It's a solo season.
With Jody, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, Wes or Jody should be an acceptable answer. And then the answer was Kara because of Vendettas. And Kara got upset, but I don't think she should. I mean, I don't know.
I think that in interviews they're like, "Hey, are you upset?" And she's like, knowing the TV persona that she is, was like, "Yeah, of course." I think it was a genuine mistake, maybe, because I also want to say the question that Jordan got out on, I think he knew that.
Yeah. But why would you say Wes? Because like Wes is like the right answer of like who you're talking about, like of solo winners too. So it is like.
Yeah, but maybe just because we're gonna get into it. I'm not jumping the gun here, I guess, but like if there's not gonna be question if he would have been like, was it Ashley Mitchell? For example, people are like, that wasn't. He could at least say with that, I was thinking like it was pretty clear to me what the question really was being asked.
I thought it could have gone that way too, Allan. I was like, oh, because I was also in the mindset that they're trying to trip you up. So I was like, I know everyone knows Cara Maria is the first solo champ, but I was thinking like individual one by themselves, not on a team, because they've just been talking about all those other seasons. I see how you could go either way, but it's good acting either if he got it wrong on purpose.
Were there any other questions that stuck out to you before we jump to the tiebreaker?
No, but I do want to point something out that I thought was just at least interesting. We don't spend any time on Tori and Josh reconciling at all because there's no point in talking about that. Duh. I did find it very interesting that Tori acknowledged I really should be in Era 4. Like, this doesn't make sense that I'm in Era 3. And I thought of that too when we were talking about how the people in 2 and 3 know this trivia. And maybe that is what puts Tori in that Era 3 because she kind of is with those Are You the One people and things like that. But I like that she admitted that because I think it's the question we've all been like, wait, her and John are in the same era? But yeah, no other questions stood out to me.
My mind just went blank when you asked me that. So someone will say something in the comments, I'm sure. Everything erased. So
moving on, we got the tiebreaker, sudden death. They tell us like because after all this has happened, the scores are tied between Era 2 and Era 3. They each send up one representative. They send up Laurel and they send up Jordan. I was stunned by how well Jordan did in this trivia because he does strike me as a person who does not watch the show when he's not on it, or maybe doesn't even watch the show when he is on it at times. I actually didn't think either of these people were the best at trivia on their teams, but I guess they went up because they were the targets if they went into elimination.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like there's a confidence aspect to it for both of them. Like they would have been pissed at other people for getting things wrong. But if they fuck up, it's whatever. It's just they have the same personality in that way.
Yeah.
I would have sent Derek and John A if I was like talking about who's probably the best at trivia on their teams because like it was live tweeting the show for years even after she was like off of it. Like those two watch the show. Like they're like actual fans.
Well, I wonder too if they made them go because they're the last two standing and also targets. Like I'm sure they just said, "You two, let's do it." But you're right. If you had to pick, I would pick Derek. That man, as you guys have both said before, knows everything.
Well, that's not how it went. As we saw, Laurel gets her tiebreaker question right. I think it was a very easy one. They asked Jordan an equally easy question of who was Devin's partner on Rivals 3. Who it's like Corey's literally pointing at himself because, it's Cheyenne. Jordan even says the name that Johnny and Vince kept calling her on Rivals 3 in like one of the uglier moments of that season. Probably, and Jordan misses it. Oh, wow. Did he do it on purpose?
So when you had said there's a possibility Jordan doesn't watch seasons he's not on, fully believe. But when he went to go say Chantel, I was like, oh no, he's watched that season. And I think that in his mind, he was like, I'm going to say that. Or maybe this is just speculation. I'm going to say that so at least it doesn't look like I'm throwing if he threw. But then was also like, that's not a good idea. And then went with Sylvia. Like,
It is funny based on the story you told us last week, Allan, about him not remembering you multiple times. Like I that was the first thing I thought of when I watched this because I was like, if we hadn't talked about this last week, I would have been like, this is ridiculous. But to know that like you've had a face-to-face conversation with him and he's probably engaged with you on like social media, you're like the only person that talks about the challenge, right? Like, and you said other cast members know who you are. So like all these things stacking up, you've met him now twice. He didn't remember who you were. I was like, you know what? It's not impossible that he cared that little about Cheyenne's name when he was talking to Corey.
yeah. And here is my genuine question for the both of you because you guys are much more introspective. What would be the benefit of Jordan throwing this?
He would have been bullied or like pushed heavily to throw in Laurel and Bananas, which he would not want to do. And I do think we've seen Naya really like last week where she was really pushing Avery to make the big move. And I think Naya actually wants to make big moves herself. So I think he just didn't want to be put in that position when he knew they'd save him. I do think he would have tried to save Bananas and Laurel, but I don't think he wanted to be put in the position regardless.
Gotcha.
And I think he knew that there's no one on that team that's going to change Laurel's mind at all. Like that's impossible.
Yeah,
She would do it out of spite.
Well, and I guess that's true that people wouldn't question Laurel as much as they would question him.
And I do think the visual of throwing in Derek and Anissa versus Bananas and Laurel is so different because, like, at least with like Anissa versus Naya, Naya and Anissa are both at the bottom of the totem pole, like when it comes to like the female competitors in the house, versus Laurel, where it's like, no, you got to throw in the two big threats.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just didn't think beyond watching it.
He 100% threw it. And I mean, Devin and Corey were like, our bullshit meter is like off. And I think those two guys actually have pretty decent bullshit meters, especially if they both feel it. Because I think they're on such different sides of the spectrum. If they actually agree on something, then it's probably true.
Yeah.
I don't know, Allan.
Those two do not see eye to eye very much.
No, I'm just stuck on him saying to your face he didn't remember who you are. And I really could see him.
Let's get really meta. He only did that because he knew this episode would be coming out. I don't know. I think Zoe, I think you've got a great point too. I just think that his confessional where he was like, just slipped my mind, and then he grins really big. I don't know.
I that was more telling to me than anything. Like the smile. That really. I'm just saying. I don't think it's impossible. You said he said your name to you every time, like when he was speaking to you in that interview. He kept repeating it over and over again. I was just like, this is too perfect that this happened.
Well, Daily Challenge wasn't even over there because in the celebration, we got Laurel going crazy, and she decides to curse out Darrell, saying "F you, Darrell." And in response, Darrell decides to throw the middle finger back at her and say, "Hey, fuck you too, Laurel."
He says, "You're a big effing bully."
No, he called her a fake ass bully.
Okay, well,
which I thought was even better of a comment of like, you're not even like a real bully, you're just a fake one, and you just try to intimidate people. Um, Darrell, I this is why I love Darrell too, because like he is not. I don't think anything Darrell did was disrespectful. He just reciprocated her energy back to her.
It's weird to win and immediately like that's how much real estate Darrell putting her in was taking up in her mind for her to immediately turn around and go, fuck you, Darrell. Like Darrell, he had to pick somebody. Like, stop making it bigger than it is. You're weird.
and very weird considering like she's not going to have power next week to like pick the targets. Like you're just making yourself look even worse. And then the comment that we were hotly like waiting for was her being like, "Don't get massages as a married man." What a low blow. And Emily being the person who was in question, who you probably could have assumed, her being like, "Hey, don't put my name in this," and Laurel turning around to her and saying, "Don't F with me." It's like, what? And I was glad we got a throwback clip that there was nothing nefarious about that. We even had the context last week that Darrell had thrown his back out in the elimination. Like, somebody who holds on to things to say to you for the perfect moment is a scary person.
They are
Like,
scary.
I'm not even talking game wise. I'm talking just like in life. Like if she truly felt like that was a bad thing and she cared about Darrell or felt like they had this friendship, regardless of being upset, she could have pulled him aside and been like, "Hey, it might not look so good to get massages from Emily." To which he could have said, "My back is messed up. Thanks for your concern, but my wife will be okay." But that is just low. And you could see everybody's face being like, at first, like, "Oh, that's funny," and then realizing the implications that will have 8 months down the road. Just gross.
I have said this multiple times. I don't think that she has many true friends on this show. I think people walk on eggshells around here because they're scared of her because she showed that's what she's willing to do over literally nothing.
Yeah.
I'm about to send you guys the photo of Arrow One. Um, Literally, when Darrell decided to clap back at Laurel rather than just like take it easily. Um, Literally, you
Uh,
got the ladies' hands in their faces. Brad just trying to completely look away. And I know specifically when Laurel was talking back and being very childish towards Darrell, Kara's just looking straight ahead. She's like, "Okay, Laurel and Emily drama. I'm out of the crosshairs for right now. Let's stay out of the crosshairs for as long as we can."
picture's worth 1,000 words. That's crazy. Everyone's scared shitless of her.
They're just tired. They're just like, "Oh no, this is going to be a whole thing for our team, and we're already like losing." Um, but kudos on Darrell for not letting just like Laurel take over that moment, because I don't know. Laurel got real childish after that too, and the way she was talking to him, like she was basically a 12-year-old.
Yeah, she just exposed herself. Every time she gets into something like this, she's just exposing herself. And like we said last week, if she'd gotten into it with someone who was like an actual dirtbag, it would be a different story. But you're getting into it with Darrell, who doesn't do anything to anyone and is just nice. Like, stop.
Yeah.
Luke said we could also assume it would be Emily. I actually had no indication personally that it'd be Emily, because I never think about Emily when it comes to drama or anything. So seeing Emily get wrapped up in it was a shock. And then after we see them at the club and Emily's talking to Brad, where Brad just kind of wants to enjoy their time together, and she's just like, "Why would Laurel say that? Why would she like put me in the situation?"
It's
Which is,
unsettling.
yeah. I only assumed it was her because I couldn't see it being any of the Era One women or 3 or 4. Like I just thought Emily's real kooky lady. She probably said, "Hey, I can massage her back." But I don't blame her for being upset about that. And this is where I wish she had some more grit to her, because like that was not cool of Laurel to do. Because luckily I think this will be a moment that blows over easily. But like imagine if there hadn't been a clip. imagine if like someone would have been like, Laurel's right. That could really mess with Darrell's home life. And again, I don't believe at all that it has any chance of doing that. But it also paints Emily as like a home wrecker. And she was genuinely just trying to be helpful. Yeah. And Brad is just trying to make out. So
Emily's only trying to wreck Nani and Casey's home. She's not trying to wreck any other. Sorry. I did actually like that moment where Emily's like, man, Brad has done so many of these seasons. He could have drama and then just go back to Livia's life. Like, I haven't done one of these in years. So, like, someone says that to me. It's like, it's all I can think of right now.
Yeah.
I think that's so real, though. It's like when confrontational people get into something, they can just like move on with their day. But non-confrontational people, it's all they think about for a week, 2 weeks, forever.
Yeah.
Guys, I got my car stolen this summer.
Right.
I've been through a lot. I've been through a decent amount of drama in my life, and when it happened, I was just literally just playing video games, just moving on with my day. And I was like, "Well, insurance might take care of it. The cops will get back to me. I'm just moving on." Like that's it. My girlfriend was just shocked by how like unfazed I was, because there's certain things like that in my life that happen, and I'm like, "All right, let's move on." It's the little things that will bug me though, and
yeah. I have a question.
Yes.
Are either of you perverts for sherbet? Because, and not to cut you off, Allan, because I mean, I agree, little things bug the crap out of me. But I couldn't get focused long enough on Emily's concerns because there was Avery jealous of people being able to hook up. And I've never in my life heard the colloquialism pervert for sherbet.
When was the last time you guys have had sherbet?
I wish today, but it's been years,
I think
decades.
I was 7, probably.
I don't hate sherbet. It's just in terms of when I make when I make an ice cream decision, I'm going all in, and sherbet is just not on. It's good, but it's not great. Pervert for sherbet. What a fucking thing to say.
I want to know what more weird thing she's going to say. Like, if she's going to keep coming out with phrases like that, keep the confessionals coming, because that was just insane. I loved how much production loved it. Like, you could hear them all laughing because they were just like, what the hell?
Right. So her confessionals are funny. Like, big Avery, like, detractor, but
she's making a comeback.
Laugh. You might just be a tractor now.
Yeah, right. She's doing what we wish she'd done in her comeback season. Like,
yeah,
I'm for it.
Avery just might be like, we're all about sex positivity on this podcast. She might be one of the hornier people on the challenge ever, because I remember on her X's 2 season, she was like, I got a boyfriend at home, but would I hook up with Adam? Probably. And again, she's stepmom with Adam now, and even here, she's a pervert for sherbet.
Well, and best of luck to the relationship. Like, I would never want her to cheat, but I do wish she had her return single, because, like, I'm sorry, I think that her and I would both be having a fun time, maybe switching off with some people.
My God, the double dates in the hot tubs and all the things that could be happening right now. Yeah, I mean, she's always been a horn dog. Her and Johnny Riley did it in a bathroom while they were at work, like on the Real World season. And I have loved that about her. I've always loved that about her. So I just wish that we could have seen it play out.
Even in like the party scenes, you just see her and Derek having a good. She just seems like a cool person to hang out with. A good.
If we were doing superlatives, she's class flirt.
Oh yeah,
she is the flirt of season 40, and I think that she should do more of it and break up with Adam maybe.
Before we move on, I do want to just also go back to Emily, which is I've talked more about Emily than I expected this season. I am so excited by the concept of a rivalry or just beef between her and Laurel, because they are two people who are often talked about as the greatest female competitor of all time. And they did one season together, Cutthroat, many years ago. Other than that, though, their paths have been completely diverged, and they don't really talk about one another in a kind of a territorial way. Like they're kind of afraid of each other in different ways. It's not anywhere near what like the Carl Laurel stuff is at all, or even like it's a very unique situation between those two.
I think Laurel doesn't want to bring any more people into the conversation of who's the best female challenger. And I think Emily does not view herself that high because she hasn't done it that many times. But I think Laurel definitely doesn't want to give any more attention to anybody else in that way.
And Laurel's always praised Emily as a competitor, but she's never been like gushing about her. It's never been like there's always been you could tell in Laurel's brain, she thinks she's better than Emily. And I think Emily, I'm not going to say she thinks she's better than Laurel, but I think she probably does think she's better than Laurel in some aspects.
Maybe in morality, I don't know. No, I agree. I think I did not expect it. So I'm still processing what this can mean going forward. But I'm just a little happy that it takes some of the heat off Kara, even for just like the 90 minutes of tonight's episode. But
talking about Kara and Era 2, her entire era has they have a team meeting where they're pitching to Bananas and Laurel like, hey, let's throw in Jordan into elimination because he will beat all our butts in the final. Let's protect Era 1 because they are literally on life support, as we'll talk about later. I don't know how, if we're so strong, part of our strength is that Era 1 is so weak. So let's go after their strongest player. And Bananas and Laurel, mostly Laurel, just tries to, I don't even know how to describe the situation. I'm not going to say politely defend themselves in the idea, but it was a scene to watch.
I will say in one of her confessionals, she said something about or she might have said it to Horacio about wanting to keep strong men around. And I do think that is a valid argument in some ways. If you're looking at yourself as one of the best women on the cast, the men have done this plenty of times before. I understand not wanting to get rid of Jordan, Horacio, really those two, anyone that you think can keep up with you in a final or will in a better way push you in a final. I completely understand that. I maybe it was edited out. I don't know why she wouldn't say that. You guys might want to get rid of the strong men, but I'm looking ahead in this game. I'm counting on making that final, and he's someone I want to run it with. I think that's legit, and then it makes it less personal and more game.
I felt the exact same way. And I guess in defense, because I thought this through earlier, they could say, well, what if we stay in teams until the end? They know what show this is. That's probably not going to happen. You're right, Zoe. She could have just said that and stood up and got out, and I would have been like, it makes complete sense.
You might not agree with it, but it's rational.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, she talked about it from the personal angle of the last time me and Jordan did Ride or Dies, Jay and Michelle personally attacked me and targeted me like they were bullies, and I told Jordan to take them out, and he did so. The entire house was against them. What didn't really take that much to get them out.
But this goes back to what I think Zoe said, just earlier. These people are living in her brain. like that being your rationale for keeping Jordan, it could have been so simple as Zoe said, but to then I was a victim to Jay and Michelle. No, you weren't. No, you weren't.
Stop it.
Yeah. I guess really I look at Johnny why would you not be pushing for it? But I also know he also knows he's not good in eliminations. Why would he ever stalemate?
Yeah. And he knows he's not going to change your mind. It's
Right.
not going to happen.
Yeah, people keep saying oh, it's the Johnny and Laurel show, and Johnny's like, okay, say that if you want. I don't even care. I just don't even want to get caught in Laurel's crossfires myself. So whatever she wants, she's basically getting. I did find it. So Ryan, I've really liked Ryan this season in part because I think he's saying a lot of what we feel about Laurel. Biggest surprise for me because I've been very anti-Ryan for a long time. I will note though, when he's complaining about Laurel, about this could be a team decision, not her decision. She was the target. It is her power at the end of the day. So it really isn't a team decision, even though they are a team.
So to defend Laurel again, I felt the same way. The team meeting's great and all, but they got put in a bad position, so now they get to reap the benefits of winning, especially her who won trivia for them.
We did get way more of Eve talking than I expected at team meeting though too. So she's just been a bigger character than I've expected.
Yeah. I forgot everything she said, but
Same, honestly. I just know that I saw her orange shirt on the screen.
She looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, if we're talking about it just from a competitive standpoint, it's also dumber to get rid of Anissa because it's hard to imagine any challenge, any elimination other than maybe a puzzle that she's going to beat Jenny in. So that is the biggest thing that's bringing Era 1 down, is having her on the team. So you want to keep.
In a ways, Zoe UNV basically said the same thing. She did not point out Anissa, but she basically like said that same thing in that moment. We're like, Era 1 is why we look so good. Era 1 is like helping us so much in ways they don't even know. We'll talk about Era 1 right now, actually, because we had the scene where Derek is, prepping for deliberation, and CC's back from being injured. They sent him back home with no shoes, too. I just want.
Thank you. And barefoot, it made it all just very sad.
20 plus seasons, one of the faces of the show, almost kill him and don't even send him back with shoes. Just.
I've never seen the man so disheveled.
And he knows it. Like, there's no front even of like, I'm back in the game, whatever. He did say me coming back as a sign of good faith, maybe some motivation, but like he can't even lay on his right ass cheek. It's crazy.
And Derek's telling Darrell to come over, and Darrell's like, I gotta stand up. I literally cannot sit down with you. And they're just laughing at each other, being like, this is the team they want to take out. This is the team, like.
They can't even like bend at the waist.
Well, and interestingly enough, too, I know we're going to get there, but I don't think it bleeds in too much. CT made a comment on like an unreleased clip they post on Instagram that he sees the final being 2 people from each era, which would be cool. Like if people are relying on that, then like you throw Jordan in. But like I wonder if that was the whole house's idea. But whenever Darrell and CT were talking with Derek, it seemed like they were saying, okay, you're going to be our person. Like you're going to be our era 1 guy. Like let us help you. We can just be like residual. But yeah, they're in rough shape.
CT also did Invasion, where it was kind of like you're the one champ representing your group. So I do think that's like a good assumption on his part of like he did that season. Probably be the same this time around. We also got a little scene with Era 4 of like Josh being like, oh, hey, I'll step up and be the nominee for next week. Team Unity. Kylan's already done it. Theo's already gone to elimination this week. I'll do it, guys.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to say that when you don't know who else is going to step up or get chosen. I think that even just adding that one little piece would have covered his ass a little bit. Just like, I think I'm willing to, but I reserve the right to change my mind if I see a bunch of scary dudes lining up, because they're going to be the ones that are chosen last.
Yeah.
We move on to deliberation. Derek did his homework, and Derek spent all this time writing in a notebook just to say, we suck. We're like literally just a picture saying we're on life support. These are the targets in the game, and it made everyone laugh a lot. It was a cute moment, but don't think it did much.
So I think that it was. I don't think it would have changed a thing. But I'm gonna go back to hating on Anissa for a second. He like laid that whole thing out, and she cut him off and was like, "Come sit back down." Immediately, Jordan says, "All right, I get what you're saying, but in order to repay a favor, you have to win." And Anissa goes, "Oh, I hate you, Jordan." Basically admitting, yeah, you've made a better point than we did in defense of us. It's like, shut up. Anissa, you should have been saying, I will never win this show, Laurel. You will beat me in any elimination. Like, but
No, but she thinks she's going to win, Luke. She legitimately thinks she has a chance at winning, so she can't even say that.
Yeah, that's what baffles me.
Amongst all of this, I do think it sometimes also gets forgotten that Laurel hates Anissa. Like, you go back to Free Agents, you go back to Rivals 1. These two have never liked each other. Like, Anissa was making, like, a lot of, like, mean comments about Laurel and Jordan's relationship, how, like, they're the epitome of what she did not like on the show, which, yeah, the only reason they were friendly-ish on Ride or Dies is because Jordan was her partner. Um, Laurel also does not like Derek or Challenge Mania at all, where she's written some mean things about them. So that is also kind of playing a factor here as well, on top of just her literally still being in love with Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I thought it was funny when Derek said, "May I approach?" because he knew that he did that like without saying he liked to get his head bit off. But yeah, I think that definitely plays in. And of course, if she says in confessional, "I hate the Challenge Mania podcast," they're not going to leave that in. It made a lot of sense, but you're right. There was nothing that could have been said that would have changed Laurel's minds. In fact, anything rational would have just made her stand further or firmer in what she actually already believed.
I think it's a good point that you brought up that she's in love with Jordan and I think that he milks it a little bit too. He takes advantage of that.
Well, and Johnny even said early on, like, she's had past relationships with, honestly, the person who is already in jeopardy and Jordan. She doesn't want to lose either one of them. Sorry.
I mean, during that reunion last season for 39, I mean, Tori talked about how Laurel reached out and basically hooked up with Jordan right after they broke up.
Well, I just clearly at this point we're being like big detractors of Laurel too, but like she's showing us full force. Like on the 39 reunion, when Horacio called in because he was filming another show, and Laurel takes it as her time to like speak to him in Spanish, so most of the cast can't hear what she's saying, and like says like some flirtatious, like it just is overkill for me. And Maurice has come out recently and said she doesn't like Laurel because of the way that she moved in some of those regards. And I'm like, people got mad at Nerys, but it is weird.
It is weird. It's weird. She's like territorial with everyone. And I think it's okay for people to just openly say, like, no, it's weird. She makes me uncomfortable. She's not my vibe. Because let's be honest, I don't think she's most people's vibes.
It's not mine.
Credit to Jordan though, because I do think Nia and Tori are both still in love with him too. So, and you see the way Nia talks about Jordan sometimes on social media. Like, she's still got love for Jordan.
I think Nia's got love for everybody, and that's not a shady comment.
You know what? Yeah, Nia's got love for everyone.
I also think the way Jordan talks about Tori, there is still a deep level of love there. I think he's very much into his girlfriend currently, and there's a lot of love there. But there is like a deeper level of respect and admiration and love between those two still.
And I think that he knows too that Tori put her future on the challenge in jeopardy by being such a big advocate for letting him come back. Like, did that live with Nia so they could both talk. Now, listen, it was problematic as hell, like what happened on there. But I think he recognizes like she actually cares about me because she could have just pushed me to the side and then become an even bigger star on the show. And maybe it was partly calculated because she knew he was part of her storyline. But you're right. There is a deep-seated respect that I don't think will ever go away.
It's a testament to editing that there was any idea that like Derek and Anissa going to eliminate. Because I mean, we never saw Era 3 really scrambling at all. They knew Jordan was going to be saved. That's what ends up happening. We go to the elimination arena. I love this elimination in theory. Execution, we're going to talk about, gets a little bit weird later on. Players have to throw a ball up a chute after they run through the sand field, and in the field there's a bunch of jacks. You got to pick them up. There's 40 of them specifically. Grab as many as you can before the ball from the chute hits the floor. You grab the ball, take the jacks, put it on a board, try to get 40 of them all up. Some of the rules kind of felt like they were all over the place, where like if the ball falls, you have to put them all back, put all your jacks back to like this other line that's farther in the sand. But I didn't feel like players were being forced to do that when it happened at times, so I was a little confused. As a whole, though, this is a heavily cardio endurance based elimination with a little bit of skill to it, a little bit of strategy. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, once I saw, especially for the women's round, that they were going to have to pick up 40 of these, and many times they were doing it one at a time. I looked at my husband and I was like, this is going to be a long elimination. Like,
Yeah.
this is going to take a while. So, but I'm glad that they literally fast forwarded at one point through the elimination because it was just taking a long time. But I do think it's a quality elimination. I do think it's an equalizer. I think you should be expected to come on the show with a baseline level of cardiovascular fitness. So I think it was great.
I think there's more strategy to this than people also think about, because I was like thinking to myself, like, okay, if I was competing in this, I would go for the farthest jacks the first, because as it goes on and I get more tired, you know.
I'd also be throwing the jacks closer to the line. Like, I've got time, maybe not to pick them up and like carry them all, but like I can just, maybe that's the first round.
That's smart.
There goes the ball. Yeah. They're on near the line.
Yeah, I would be throwing them towards the bottom of the ramp, like picking them up and shuttling them over. Mm-hmm. And then if I think I might drop it, you know what I do at the last second? Drop all my jacks.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because then at least they're right there.
We're talking through right now. There's all these different strategies you could use. Like, I'm like, so it's not just physical. It's not just cardio. There was a mental aspect to this too. Talk about the women's round first, Aneesa versus Jenny. And I'm going to give Aneesa credit. This was probably her best elimination performance in, I think, years. Even though she's won multiple eliminations in the last like 5-10 years, she held up much better in this elimination than I expected.
I think it also highlighted how unathletic Jenny is, while in very good shape, very unathletic. The fact that it took her, 7 tries to get the ball into the ramp was...
Which, if you're production, you're so happy they had that conversation earlier because it affirmed everything that was said.
I don't want to call Jenny unathletic. I want to call her like almost unskilled. Because I've seen her like swim and run, and she runs and swims like an athlete, but she does not, like, when it comes to the technical, more sporty type athleticism, she just has no experience.
So she has no hand-eye coordination.
Yeah.
Because, I think running and swimming is a skill also, like, to the extent that people are doing it on this show. Like,
yeah.
But I also was wondering if Jenny has asthma, but it didn't seem to bother her in the Total Madness final in the bitter cold. So I don't want to like detract. I know I'm a hater. I know we're haters. It's like part of my brand. At the end, when she's just standing there doing nothing for what seemed like a minute, 2 minutes, I was just like, is she just like, is she trying to make Aneesa's loss look better?
Maybe, but I'll tell you what's even crazier. In that moment, I wanted Aneesa to win. Like, that's how you know that this is not just pure hate here. Like, I was like, well, that would be a pretty cool story for Aneesa to go back, like to go back in the house and then maybe be the target 2 weeks from now. But I don't know. I had to laugh at Jenny being like, my parents are music teachers. We didn't do sports. But it's also like, what do you mean your airways are closing?
It really sounded like asthmatic breathing at one point. Like she really was struggling to open her airways. And I don't know if it was like hot where they were and she just doesn't do well in the heat or something, like whatever. I felt it felt weird. I was like, at this point you could walk and get your final one. Just stop. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Maybe it might have been like on top of just the actual cardio, just the stress and panic of, especially like once she threw that ball up 10 times and just wasn't able to get through. I don't even know what to say. Like it really did shock me, because we've seen Jenny run on this show and be able to like basically run marathons. So it was shocking to see like that.
If we see her later in the season in another elimination that has some sort of heavy cardio, or even a daily with a lot of heavy cardio, I'm going to call this elimination into question immediately if she doesn't have the same struggles, because it was weird, especially to be so close to winning and to just be falling apart like that. I felt like it was like personal advertising for her personal training. Look what I did for Anissa.
Well, and I think too, much like with Tony, where there are people in the stands who are like, "Is he throwing?" I think when someone vocalizes that, sure, her breathing sounded, agonal, whatever. But for Casey of all people to have a voice and be like, "She's throwing this," I was like, "Well, that is a little sketchy." But she won.
Yeah, and I do wonder if there's an alternate edit of this version where Anissa is just continuously missing the last ball. Um, and maybe that's why she's taking that break or breather, because like maybe she's missing more balls than we're seeing in the edit, and that's why she felt so confident with it, or just wasn't going. Um, that wouldn't be shocking.
I did feel bad when Anissa had the 3 jacks in her arms and the ball fell, but I'm also like, that's a do or die moment, like in your life, even. Like,
Mm.
and you couldn't speed up to catch the ball.
That's going to be in the edit, the Anissa losses edit, of the many losses that we see of her. That's just an instant moment with the ball hitting the ground there. Jenny gets the win. Anissa now up to 14 elimination losses. I think that's a record.
Yay.
Hi, Anissa.
We won't be talking about her again this season, so goodbye.
She'll slip up in conversation and I'll mute myself. I'll give her so much credit. I actually do for the first time think she is taking her fitness like very seriously right now. If you see her Instagram stories, like she is daily, which is what we've been saying for years, daily be in the gym, go on runs, do lifts, and she visibly looks much different. It's probably a surefire thing should be on the next season. Please keep being consistent. Please. Prove me wrong. You won't, but prove me wrong. Okay, I had to get that out before we stop talking about her.
That's all we want. All we want to do is be proven wrong, truly. Moving into the men's elimination, Horacio versus Derek. And I think these are like, if you're talking about like men you could put in this elimination all time, these are two of the best competitors you could throw into this type of matchup. Because, I mean, Horacio, if you watch his show Exathlon, it's all a bunch of high speed obstacle course challenges, kind of like this, where you got to like, put balls through hoops, catch stuff, little things like this. And then Derek is a former collegiate shortstop. He's got great hand-eye coordination. He's got an endless motor. Like these two men in this elimination, it's a perfect matchup. Like, and what we saw in the actual matchup was like them carrying 4 jacks at once. Commonly, they were going nonstop.
Yeah, while the other one felt like it was in slow motion, I was like, okay, this one's going to be over pretty quickly, actually.
Right.
And then things got weird near the end there.
Yeah, so I thank God we're not going to talk about the whole middle part because like they were neck and neck. But in the end, they go get their last, but Derek puts his last in, so does Horacio, but there's still a missing peg on Derek's. And everybody's like, what's going on? Now, are we missing the context of people being like, did Derek have a peg missing? Which I could see production messing that up. Did maybe when he hit the wall, it fell out and he forgot to put it back in there? Whatever the case was, spoiler, at this point, Derek wins the elimination, but CT says the winner is the person who got their 40 pegs in first. And Derek like turns around and throws his hands up like he's lost, like, accepting defeat. And Horacio has a smirk on his face. And TJ says, Derek. And Derek turns around and Horacio's smile completely falls from his face. There is something fishy going on here. And if you follow spoilers, like it was even tweeted that Horacio felt like this was unfair and they did not fairly announce the winner.
I mean, Horacio was so confident on that last one that he like walked over to put his peg in. So what's going on here? And I think it's a frustrating thing as a viewer that we're never going to know.
Well, here's what I was just thinking too. We right now are not going to know. I guarantee you when this podcast is put out, because we put it out right after the episode, I bet cast members will say what actually went down. And I cannot wait to hear that. And if anybody does, it'll be Nerys because she's going to want to defend her man. I'm interested to hear what is said because I'm like you, Zoe. Huh?
I mean, it's a weird editing choice to show the missing peg and then say Derek won. It doesn't make any sense.
And I even said to them, Zoe and Allan, before we pressed record, maybe it was just an older clip like used together, but it was them dapping up after the elimination, and that top right peg or that hole was still pegless. Like it was missing.
Horacio's body language told the whole story to me of he was very, very upset, and he's not going to be the one to blow up, but he politely exited as much as he could, talked about some other stuff. He went on social media after the season and basically said oh, I'm retired from the show now, which the rumors are that he feel like he was done dirty by production when it came to this stuff. And yeah, it's a weird situation because I can't imagine a world where production would want Derek to be on the show over Horacio at this point.
And
I was struggling with too.
When I try to think if it was a numbers thing for a next daily, or if they thought it was boring TV to have two people from Era 1 go, but I don't understand it either. And will Horacio change his mind? I kind of hope. But yeah, as soon as that spoiler came out, Horacio's I'm not doing the challenge anymore.
I can tell you that I do think he'll be back, just because I think it's something he said very dramatically. And at the end of the day, he likes to compete and he gets a good amount of money to do this. I don't think he's working a regular job right now. I think he's just social media influence posting with Maurice. So I think getting to compete, getting a good paycheck for X amount of time, I think he'll come back for that.
Yeah.
I think Horacio is also the kind of guy, if he was coming back just to try and get Nerissa a win, he would do it. Because that's kind of who he is.
He also didn't even tell anyone he was doing season 39, and then he just pulled up. So he'll say he's not doing it, and then he'll just be there. So who knows? And I mentioned before, I don't know why production would want Derek over Horacio, and some of you might be surprised to hear that, fans at home, because you're oh, but Derek's a legend. I post about the show. I can tell you, when I post about Horacio, the numbers are insane. The blog numbers, our YouTube page, when we did our interview with him, thousands and thousands and thousands of views. People love Horacio, even though he's not the most dramatic or most entertaining. There's just an infatuation about him online. It's also because he's hot.
Well, and realistically, if you want the show to carry on, let's further Horacio's storyline, because he has more of a chance to be back on. Derek is getting older. He has a newborn. In fact, I listened to a podcast over the summer where he said his wife's due date was so close to filming that he was worried about even going. It's I think he would have been okay. And I am now questioning, I wonder how the remainder of this season would have played out. And I won't say anything about how it plays out, but if Horacio had been there, I saw him as a viable winner of the season.
Totally.
I had a friend from my company reach out and ask me, what have I missed from the past 3 seasons? And I was like, Horacio kid, he's the Mexican Landon. Is he legit? Could he compete with Jordan? I'm like, oh, he beat Jordan's ass in an elimination already. He's done that. He set the record for elimination wins. He's the real deal. And he was, viewed as a top threat to win this season. And now he's out episode 4. And we kind of say this every week, because we had Jody leave last week. We got Horacio leaving this week. We also got Anissa out. Some of the biggest threats to win this game are now gone. And it's going to happen again next week.
I'm glad you couldn't even get through that with a straight. I will miss Horacio, though.
I will as well. I just feel without Nerissa there, I think this is the downside of his casting, and maybe why production wasn't so keen to keep him, because what's he going to do?
He was probably sitting in a corner somewhere, and they're what's the point of keeping him around if he's not going to perform?
Yeah, if Derek's going to make notes and lists and whatever, I can see, but I do want to hear people's thoughts, because if it's production messed up and didn't have enough jacks out there for Derek, then that's bad, for both of them.
Mm-hmm. That's a scenario we got to just reset the elimination. I think Horacio already had a foot out the door after Nerissa left, but I do think that there is just the competitor in him who's if I go out, I don't want it to be done on a dirty premise. And I also I want to beat Derek because I want to beat Derek.
Yeah.
God, it's this show. There's just so many layers to it at all times. And Derek has not been thumping his chest about his Paul Russell win over Mark the way he did with Joss. Because I think we mentioned before, like we don't know if that was like fully the most clean elimination, and now we go into this elimination here. Like in theory, if you're Derek, you beat Mark and Horacio. That's like an incredible season, but both eliminations are just like they both have bad sense around them.
They have asterisks. Bummer for Derek if he did win them both clean, right?
Right.
Yeah, because like this is something you should be proud of. Like I took down Mark and Horacio. I took down the OG and the new guy. I'm still good, but doesn't feel that way.
And eliminations tailored to both of their skill sets.
Exactly. We do move on to the targeting portion though, which I think is just it's the most fun way to end every episode.
Yeah.
Derek asks who on Era 1 wants it. Tina steps up, which I think smart, honorable move. It's not going to be Rachel, of course.
They'd be never put Rachel up, frankly.
And honestly, I think Tina knows that and is like, here's a real ride or die. I think Tina would do it every single week for Rachel.
Yeah, I think she would too. They asked for Era 2, and Emily steps up. She stepped up, right? Corey stepped up for Era 3. And Olivia stepped up for Era 4. I do think Tori stepped up in part because of who was stepping up on the men's side, or who went in on the men's side. They asked
Jenny targets.
Yeah, Jenny did her nominations, and CT immediately stepped up.
Which I think is bizarre, because if there's going to be a CT pro tip, and he might have already said this, it would be not to nominate yourself. But I think this goes back to what we said earlier. I think he thinks that Derek or Brad are going to be the representatives going forward because him and Darrell are hurt. So at least can appreciate if he doesn't feel like he can win the season at this point, like he's going to keep fighting until the end if he needs to. But I was absolutely shocked to see him volunteer himself.
I think there is also a psychological factor that it might protect your team. It might protect Tina by stepping up because people don't want to go against him. It might not have been that honorable, but that was my immediate thought was nobody wants to go against CT, which we saw happen.
Yeah, that's very true. Because what's crazy is there's only 2 women left on Era 1. Like, let's point out, like that's nuts.
And it's their 2 best ones. So makes sense. Brad being the only guy on Era 1 not to go in, very shocking to me, especially after his last 2 showings. So good for him. Era 2, actually no men step up. And Jenny says, well, Nehemiah, you're the only one who hasn't gotten nominated yet or been up for elimination. Nehemiah just kind of looks at her like, that's right. Are you going to do it to me right now? And so she picks him and he's like, okay. But I did like that nobody was going to step up in that group.
Yeah, and she wasn't going to put Bananas up, but it would have been awesome if she did. Just say like, yeah, we're gonna run it back, Bananas. You're gonna be on the line again.
Yeah.
Era 3, apparently they had agreed that Corey would be next in the rotation, or maybe Devin agreed that Corey would be next in the rotation, and Corey was like, well, I'm not stepping up if Devin isn't stepping up, so we're going to let Jenny decide this, and Jenny's got a little bit more history with Corey, so pick Devin.
Yeah, and I know they don't film everything, like it'd be impossible or else we'd see every tidbit, but like I feel like if they had that talk, it would have been on film like Josh's was. And also, like, why would you ever tell your team you're going to volunteer? Like, that is just so bad. You can literally be safe the next week if you're not picked.
This is just a good little moment because I like that Corey just didn't saw an opportunity to save himself. He took it, and it's going to also lead to some drama within the team for next week, and that'll be fun. He should have saved Amanda, but this will be fun. And then Era 4 comes, and Josh, who previously announced to the whole room he'd be volunteering, he says CT only nominates himself when he's confident he could beat the person in elimination. So he recedes back into his shell, remembering double agents, and he knows that him and Jenny have more of a relationship than him and Kylan. So Kylan goes up for nomination again.
It's a weak move, but I don't blame him.
Oh.
No, I honestly, it's self-preservation. And again, like you're looking at this lineup of guys that just stepped up, and it's like there is, in every way, those three people could beat Josh at something, right? Like he's not an all-around better competitor than any of them in most things. I think his fitness at this point is comparable, but he's also like, he panics. So while it's not going to be a good look for him, he's going to get a lot of flack for it. I don't blame him.
It's a smart move. I mean, if you don't have to go into elimination, don't do it. If you got the social connections, don't do it.
Well, because here's the thing. He might piss off Kylan, sure. What woman is going to nominate him next week on his team? Like Emily, Tina, Olivia, and Tori? Who's going to nominate him to be a captain or a target the next week? Probably none of them.
It's a good move by him, and I do think like this is where it comes in handy that he has good relationships with the women in the house.
Well, because like Emily and Tina are going to look to weaken their team, and Josh isn't going to be the one. Tori has the friendship, and I think Olivia, with all the weird stuff with Kylan from the prior season, like she would go there first. He's in a good spot. He should just keep laying low.
Yeah.
And Josh is closer with Theo than he is, or Theo is closer with Josh, which plays into the Olivia thing too. So, yeah, there's all these different moving parts to the season. This male, I mean, we talked about it last week where we had Jordan, CT, Bananas, Derek, Horacio, or Jordan, Bananas, Derek, Horacio. This week we got CT, Nehemiah, Kylan, and Devin. So that's going to be a stacked elimination because you got CT, who is CT. Kylan is like 5-2 in eliminations and beat the brakes off Darrell and Brad last season. You got Nehemiah, who if you go through like Nehemiah's challenge history, he's really only ever lost one elimination, and it was to Big Easy and Hasela on All Stars. Like he's never lost an elimination cleanly. He beat the hell out of Derek last season on All Stars. He's not someone you want to face in elimination. And then Devin, where if he goes in, it's going to be a puzzle. So you don't want to face Devin in a puzzle.
Right. It's a given at that point.
We're kind of blessed here. We're like every week, like we know that 60% of the house isn't going into elimination, but we're going to probably get a good elimination.
And we get 2 of them, which is what we've been asking for. So I'm not mad at it.
Tori versus Emily. I'd be excited to see Olivia versus Tori even. Like that would be that'd be a fun elimination.
The only thing that's missing are the karma points, because it's not been mentioned since episode 1.
Yeah.
We need.
No, I'm just curious. We're not going to hear anything about it again until the final? Is that what it's going to be?
It's so frustrating because we should get like a weekly thing, like when Survivor, when they have the people reveal the votes at the end of the episode, we should get a thing where we get a chart of every single person's karma points. We should get a live spreadsheet of like where all the points are being distributed. So that way we could at least keep track of it. And so it actually wasn't rigged.
It'd be a good little thing to post on YouTube once a week.
Or on socials, fan engagement, like very simple way to boost your socials. Challenge producers.
Yeah.
Like, and you've already got the people there, the talent's there. Record it before they leave. You're already doing interviews. The fact is, they probably already were recorded. They're just not putting them out.
They're also putting out extra clips of stuff that don't make it into the episode. So why wouldn't you add that in as another thing for fans to come back to and see later in the week?
No clue.
We're complaining about this, but overall we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And scenes for next week. Yeah, like Well, not next week, maybe 2 weeks from now, but we'll see. Maybe they'll do a Thursday episode. I don't know. It's not shown up on my DVR, but it looks a lot like some more Laurel drama. Like, as much as she's infuriating me, like she is providing, so I will give her that all the way. She's got a problem with Emily. And I think that Allan is correct that she does not want to cede that top girl situation because she's already beat Kara. We've seen it. Kara's even said, "You're better than me." But it looks like she's going to throw it, which we've seen Laurel do before. And I just don't love her.
Well, we get potentially the big confrontation, which was teased to us with her and Kara too, which I really need to see.
I do too, and I will say this. I'm very curious because if you follow spoilers, you know what the conversation centered around. I'm curious if we're going to be shown the conversation in full or if it will be watered down because things are watered down on All Stars 4, but we can maybe understand why. They've been showing some pretty intense stuff on season 40. I hope they show all of it because from what I heard, it got intense.
I would go as far as to predict that we do not get an elimination next episode. I think that with the amount of drama it seems to be with the daily challenge and then what happens after, I would not be shocked if we do not get an elimination next episode. But I don't think it'll be a bad episode. But I don't know if it'll be a good episode. I think we're gonna get a very drama-filled 90 minutes of TV that's gonna have a lot of people talking.
Unless you know that we're not, I think we're getting an elimination. Just based off like my little tracker that I've got of how the episodes will go. But it will be dramatic. But I hope we still get the eliminations. Especially if we have to wait 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna die.
My guess is like, if I had to guess right now, I'd say no elimination next episode, but it'll be at the beginning of the following episode, and then we just get like a beginning to end elimination sometimes when they just speed through an episode. Because I just think that like the way that trailer was, like it's gonna take up such the fight that they've been teasing in the trailer, and like, I mean, it's hard to avoid if you haven't been online. So congrats if you have. Congrats, Zoe. I don't even want to say congrats because it's gonna be heavy.
It's gonna be bad, yeah.
If you guys saw the muted terms on my Twitter, it's actually insane. Like I've muted every single elimination or every single competitor, everything that might be like elimination related. I muted like Vacation Alliance and like all the things that I thought might pop up. So that's, yeah, I'm really dying to find out.
Zoe has no clue. We have a new Secretary of Defense named Cara Maria, just because she has all the terms muted. Imagine just every important world event, just its new challenger names.
Well, thank God there's no one on the challenge named Taylor, because then I would just not be online.
Right.
All right, everyone, make sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get the podcast. We've been appreciating the views. We might have an interview with Horacio on this channel this week. I'm not 100% sure if it's happening or not, but it might be here. So stay tuned. If not, we'll be back when episode 5 comes.